Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Rusty here, and welcome back to Impact Dynamics Live for another episode. Tonight is Thursday night. That means it's reloading night, and here we go. We've got Steve Hurt from Outer Edge Projectiles. Very much looking forward to that chat. He was here 2 weeks ago, and that was probably the most amount of comments as the chat's been closing out that people have been, oh no, we want him back, we got to get him back. So we did exactly what you guys wanted. We got him back. So that's it. Let us know what you're up to, and we'll do what we can to keep everyone happy. Now, tonight's episode is brought to you by Projectile Warehouse, of course, the tie-in with projectiles. So you can save 5% off over at Projectile Warehouse, including on Outer Edge Projectiles, by using the code IDLive5. Jump over there and have a bit of a look around, especially when Steve is talking. No doubt we'll get onto some of his projectiles at some point tonight, but code IDLive5, you can use that to go and check out the site and do things on those lines. Tomorrow night, Dave Acker is on the show. We'll be talking about his Illinois happens to be, and what else have we got? Oh, big shout out to Ness, who is cranking Team Impact stuff. She not only did, she's doing a walk every day, she's off the booze, there's 10 days straight, and she works in a bottle shop, so that's quite impressive to be off the booze that much while you were surrounded by temptation. But she did 2 big walks today for about an hour each and did a workout as well. Madness. I think she's completely winning Team Impact at the moment. But anyway, that's good to see. Good to see a few guys in the chat here. Say good day if you're hovering about and stalking us and joining in. That's awesome. Andy Little, Mark, hey guys, Anthony and Craig, and good day Ben and Brad, and Smells Like Butt. You got to let me know what your name is, mate. I saw we had you on Instagram the other day and didn't even catch your name. And Ben's on there and Dave's on there as well. Dave Sheldrake has been dropping videos as well. Put his second video up for the week. So well done, man. That's cranking. He gave us a shout out, which was very kind of him. Thanks, man. I will be dry firing as part of my Team Impact challenge. I will be dry firing tonight. So after the show, 5-10 minutes afterwards, I will be on Instagram live. If you want to jump on in, grab your gun and let's dry fire together. That'd be great. G'day Scott in the chat as well. And I think that's about, Monday night. Monday night is Team Impact Reset Night, where we see how we've gone with our various goals. I think a few guys have already smashed it. Or we check in. Andy will be here, and we'll see what's happening and where everyone's up to and doing what. And then, most importantly, we'll be setting those goals again for the next 2-week cycle. So if you didn't jump on the last session, start thinking about what maybe you could put on the table to say, hey, I'm going to do this or get this done or whatever it is. Seems like some restrictions are starting to ease up in some areas of Australia, which is great news. Ranges are meant to be opening up or potentially opening up this weekend in Northern Territory, which is very exciting for the guys up there and completely demoralising for the rest of us, although it probably means that we're working towards it, which is encouraging. Anyway, I bring that up because then perhaps maybe there's a few other goals that you were thinking about that may be more relevant now or very soon, particularly if you're going to be able to get out to the range and go shooting or maybe go hunting in due course. So have a think about that, work out what goals it is. Maybe it's reloading again, maybe it's dry firing, maybe it's weight loss, maybe it's strength building, that's not a word, strength building. Maybe you want to get through a book or two. I know Steve Black is all over that one. Set it up, we'll chat with Andy and we'll start locking some goals in for the next couple of weeks. Great to see guys actually doing something with this enforced downtime to some degree. What else can I tell you? If you are watching this, the moment we get Steve on the screen, can you do us a big favour? Because we really appreciate you guys jumping on board and we would love to be able to share this with more. What would be awesome is when Steve comes on, so there's the 2 of us on screen, if you could screenshot that or take a photo and chuck it up on your Insta stories or Facebook stories or Snapchat or wherever it is that you put your social media outlet through and tag us in and try and, if you've got friends who might enjoy the show, tag him in. Let's see if we can get a few more people watching, because Steve is full of all sorts of knowledge, as are other guests we've got lined up, and even more so in the coming weeks. So I'm looking forward to that, but we'd love to have a few more people involved, because it makes it more fun as well. Right, I think we have. G'day Warwick, g'day Scott. Scott, your Stage 1 merch went out today, by the way, mate. So you should not be too far off seeing that. Although the way Australia Post is going these days, it could be like 15 weeks, but who knows? Anyway, not to worry. Speaking of not worrying, let's bring. I don't know, that's a very poor segue, but anyway, let's bring Steve in. Steve was here 2 weeks ago and blew everyone away with all sorts of knowledge. We are going to talk a little bit projectiles tonight, but we are also going to delve more into broad and reloading. If you guys have reloading questions or questions for Steve about Outer Edge Projectiles, or just life advice from the man, put them in the comments, and we will see what we can draw out of him. Don't forget to screenshot, take photos, all that sort of gear. G'day Andrew, hope you're doing well, mate. And let's get into this. Steve, how are you doing tonight?
Pretty good, mate. It's been a wonderful ride, and I'm enjoying this wonderful balmy weather we've got out here.
Yeah, I bet you said it was 2 degrees outside.
Yeah, a bit of a toe snapper.
Yeah.
Raining and winding, and about 45 minutes away it's snowing on the top. So yeah, it's
right.
pretty cool.
And it was so cold yesterday, your power turned off for the day.
It was out from around about 8:30 in the morning and come back on about 10 o'clock at night. So
right.
I was sitting here talking to all my mates. Yeah.
So not only in quarantine, you're also quarantined with no power. Great.
Yeah, wonderful.
Yeah, I bet, mate. I bet. Shout out to Steve and Andrew and Chungi, you are all in the chat as well, saying good day. So guys, so good to have you on board. Steve, you've been making projectiles the last couple of weeks.
Every day.
Every day, except yesterday.
I was cleaning, coating, packing them yesterday.
Oh, okay.
So I'm still labelling them and getting them away. So I always seem to be doing something toward bullet manufacturer, even if the big machine isn't running.
Gotcha. Oh, Good to see. Good to see. Keeping busy. That's exciting to hear. Excellent, mate. And how's those new projectiles? We getting some new projectiles soon from you?
Yeah, the 116 grain 6.5s are in the system being tested as we speak, and I'm just waiting for those results to come back before they're finally released. I'm pretty excited about them. So far, they're showing a lot of promise.
Yeah, fantastic. That's good. And I love the extent you go with the testing and stuff like that. It's very good, very comforting when you're releasing something new to know that it's been proven and works and tested and all that sort of thing. It's fantastic.
And I'm working on the some very special 6 mils next. So
stay tuned.
I'm sure you'll be interested in that one.
Oh, absolutely. Especially, actually, I don't know what twist rate's in the GT, but I need to run something in the GT, so I look forward to it. I look forward to it. Now, mate, in talking with you, prepping for tonight, we were talking about what to kick off with the discussion, because we spoke pretty much last time all about projectiles, which makes sense because you know about projectiles, but you also know a lot more about reloading generally, and we thought we might touch on case prep, because that can have a really significant effect on what's happening there. Have you got a particular process when you're loading that you take your case prep through?
My word, I do, but it comes down to horses for courses. It depends on whether I'm loading up for hunting, whether I'm loading up for product testing, whether I'm loading up for extreme long range, and the requirements for each of them are quite different. When you're really busy testing a broad range of product in a broad range of calibers, it's really important to budget your time effectively and make sure you're getting the stuff you need done without wasting time on things you don't need to get done. And a classic example of that is there's no point getting down into single-digit SDs when you're working with a hunting projectile. You want something that's going to be extremely accurate and effective to about 400 metres, but that's not a requirement. So you need much tighter requirements when you're going to much longer ranges, like 1,000 metres and beyond, or if you're doing product testing.
Mm.
So I'm essentially fairly lazy. I only do what needs to be done.
Yep.
But if it needs to be done, I'll make sure it gets done properly.
Okay.
Mm.
Is there something in your by the way, shout out to Andy Little who just tagged us in on our Instagram story. Thanks Andy for that. Keep that coming. That's good and certainly helps. Is there a particular process that you have found that no matter whether you're hunting or whatever, that is super important, that perhaps maybe, I mean, obviously you have to resize your case. There's stuff you have to do, but outside of the stuff you have to do, is there a couple of things that is really important that makes a big difference that perhaps that people may not have thought of?
I think it's always helpful to start with being reminded of the basics.
Yep.
And then we'll move into the more advanced stuff as and where people want to go.
Sure.
But when it comes to case prep and in fact any form of reloading preparation, you've really got to start with good brass. Now, when it comes to brass selection, my first preference is always to go with European brass.
Yep.
There are Lepore or Norma or RWS, and yes, I know they're much more expensive, but in my book, they've always proven to be cheaper in the long run, both in terms of consistency, the number of cases you end up throwing out,
yep,
and the number of reloads that you get out of them.
Okay.
I'll give you a classic example in my
Sure.
7-57, my 7-57 hunting rifle. I bought 3 lots of RWS brass, and the case capacity variation is less than half a grain, and each of those 3 lots were 20 years apart.
Oh wow!
So we're talking about really high levels of consistency, very high standards of quality, and whilst I find that you can get sometimes very, very good consistent batches from US manufacturers, the next batch might also be very consistent, but they might be very different. So when I'm preparing a particular cartridge, I set just one brand of brass. I will check it for case capacity and for consistency. Then, of course, you do your run through, make sure the case necks are round and the lengths are right, and I'll do an internal and external chamfer, and then just go straight to priming and prepping from there. My first preference, one would be Lepore, second would be Norma, and third would be RWS. That doesn't discount Alpha One or Peterson. It's just outside my experience at this point in time.
Yep.
But the consistency of those are now such that I rarely bother checking,
Right.
except for the ELR stuff, because there just doesn't seem to be any point. Yeah. So once the new brass has been prepped, chamfered in and out, and starting to load. Much of my stuff here now has already been done before, so I have a go-to library of load data and all the rest of it to go with.
Yep.
But if it's a new case or a new product, a new projectile, or I'm doing pressure testing or something along those lines, I'll kick off with estimation from the quick load program. And whilst the quick load program is sometimes scorned by many, it's often because it's a very complex program that is not particularly well driven by a lot of people who don't understand how to manage variables. But if you get them right, you get good data in, you can produce some amazing results. And I'm normally able to get, even with a new cartridge, sub-quarter MOA within 20 to 25 rounds.
Very good, mate. Good news is Projectile Warehouse will be stocking RWS brass very soon. Just an aside, I didn't realise you.
I didn't know.
Yeah, you didn't know that, and that's only something that's come in the last couple of days. But anyway, that details aside.
Okay. whether it's new brass or brass that's being uh, recycled after one, two, or however many firings,
Mm-hmm.
the most important issue uh, that any reloader must get right first is their jump. Jump to the lands is critically important.
Mm-hmm.
It's a small amount of change has a very, very big impact or a very big variation in quality outcomes. So when I'm doing when I'm doing load development, I get the jump set right first,
Mm-hmm.
and then I go to powder development, which is normally as specified in our calculations,
Yep.
normally within a couple of grains anyway. So you start with you jump to the lands, and my starting point for all projectiles, not just ours, is 50 thou.
Mm-hmm.
I start all of them at 50 thou, and then if I find that we need to make variation, I go in 5 thou increments up or down. I've rarely ever found anything that shot well and flexibly both 40 thou. Absolutely great place to start.
Yeah, fantastic. Yeah, nice. Which is
Right,
which
so
is further out than most people would think to start, isn't it?
yeah, yes, but both our testing and testing in the US
Mm.
is demonstrating on a consistent basis now
Yep.
that you might lose zero 0.1 MOA in group size doing that, but you're actually gaining about half MOA in consistency in elevation at distances from 600-700 meters and beyond.
Yep.
So you jump to the lands at 50 will determine your group size,
Yep.
and then powder variation will determine your ES and SDs.
Got it. Got it. I was just going to bring up mention that the precision rifle blog, because you've referenced both this time and previously about the research coming out of the US. It's sort of backing up stuff that you've been on about for quite a while. And if
Yeah.
people are interested in finding that, you can find that on the precision rifle blog. There's been sort of I'm just having a look here. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 reports from sort of in conjunction with Mark Gordon from Short Action Customs, who over the last 2 years has conducted quite an elaborate scale of experiments and research, and so it's not just been like what they did on a weekend. This has been, years of testing and trying to see whether it would work, and it's sort of backing up things that you have been talking about for many more years, Steve. And but it's nice to see that get taken and put through the paces on a scale that gets watched at a global level. So if you guys are looking for documentation on that, that's a really good place to start. Talking about
and to be fair, and it's hats off to Cal and Mark and the boys over there. Whilst we had this data and have been preaching this from the pulpit for many years.
Yeah.
It was our perspective that this was actually unique to copper bullets.
Oh, okay.
These gentlemen have actually demonstrated that it's closer to universally true than anybody first believed. So
that's fantastic.
All credit to them in that regard.
Mm.
I mean, we've only got so much time, money, and effort,
Of
and
course.
obviously we were putting it toward our own product, and it was like standing under a cold shower to see this exact same data coming straight back at us on other people's products. So there is a lot of merit. There's a lot of merit to this position. So and I tip my hat to Cal and the boys for verifying that.
Yeah, fantastic.
And they did it very scientifically and very statistically well.
Yeah. Yeah, and they certainly it seemed they're very, very comprehensive and not, as I said, not just some sort of weekend. We tried this and it worked. This is a multi-year type scenario that was Anyway, very, very interesting reading. Definitely worth checking out. Steve, we're having.
Go on.
Sorry, I was going to say we're having some questions start rolling in. If that's all right for you. But anyway, sorry, if you're finishing a thought out, please do.
just, yeah, in the process of their testing, I think they did half a dozen calibers from 6 mil through to, I think it was 338 or at least 30 cal anyway, and they burnt out somewhere between 25 and 30 barrels in their testing and processing. So that's a lot of rounds. And they were able to quantify a great number of very important issues, like they're able to quantify barrel wear and the influence that has on bullet seating and all the rest of it, which again is something that we've been talking about for a long time, but they've actually been able to put numbers to it, and it seems to be universally true for traditional and copper bullets.
Yeah, brilliant. Right, Bannon from the Long Gun Projects, funnily enough, asks, can you outline or maybe go with a couple of key points that are really relevant to when you're loading up for extreme long range stuff? Is there a couple of things that you would do only in that process that you wouldn't do normally?
Yes, there's probably a number of them. When it comes to the ELR stuff, I do weigh my cases, not because of the weight of the case is particularly relevant, but obviously I'll mark each one and then put a dead primer in it, measure the case capacity with distilled water and measure. And every now and then you come up with some unpleasant surprises. You might find one case in 50 which has got a 2, 3 or 4 grain case capacity variation.
Yep.
And that case just gets taken straight out of the equation and is used as your dummy round for your sample for bullet seeding or something along those lines. It still has a use, but it obviously gets taken out of the shooting equation. So I measure the case capacity for all ELR cases.
Yeah, okay.
And the last batch of European brass that I tested for my Norma, I did the whole batch, and the ES for case capacity variation was just over 0.3 of a grain with an ES with an SD of less than 0.25. So I had this go. I'm not going to check this lot ever again. All I need to do now is every now and then check it for case growth.
Yep.
Internal and external chamfering. The other thing is with ELR is how you clean the cases is really important.
Okay. Yep.
I use an ultrasonic cleaner. I flatly refuse to use stainless steel media because it case hardens the surface of the brass.
Yep.
And if you do that, then you are obviously required to anneal the brass each and every time. And some of the testing that we've done and the testing that's been done by the applied ballistics team demonstrates you get a higher level of consistency on the third firing after annealing. So we don't anneal all the time. We probably anneal after each third firing. So that, and then we check for case growth, which so far hasn't been an issue for us. We check the internal and external chamfering, which we just check for it. I don't actually have to do the trimming most of the time.
Yep.
But you would have to if you're using stainless media, because it will round the edges over and all of that kind of thing.
Right.
And the other thing too is that with ELR, you want absolute consistency in everything.
Yes.
And that means your primer pockets have got to be absolutely spotlessly clean. They've got to be seated to exactly the same depth. The holes have got to be clean. Now, we don't lubricate the inside of the case next because we're using lubricated bullets. So that's a step we don't need to take.
Yep.
We don't need to worry about ogive comparators or anything like that, because coming off the CNC, ogive comparators actually aren't accurate enough to be able to measure the difference. I use an A&D scale with the auto tricolour, and literally getting down to a granule of powder. And our ES is a sub 5. feet per second. So we get it's not relatively normal for us to get 2 to 4 feet per second variation.
Yep.
Now, at 400 meters, that is just a ridiculous expectation, right?
Sure.
It's irrelevant.
Yeah.
But it counts for quite a lot at 1,500 meters. And that's where we side in and move out from there.
Got it. Yeah, it's makes sense, mate. I think is it that is that everything in the ELR process that's different to your normal process? Because I imagine you.
I do use inline dyes and micro seeding dyes for the ELR, which I wouldn't do for hunting or for general application.
Yep.
If you're shooting at 400, 600, 800 yards, no, I don't use that kind of fancy equipment.
Yep.
And when it comes to the A&D and the auto trickler, yes, I use them for everything, but I'm very fastidious about the ELR stuff, whereas the rest of it is just a time-saving device. I can punch them out a lot quicker, and if it's out by 0.3, 0.4 of a grain, it doesn't really matter on a hunting load.
Yep.
But on ELR, you want single-digit BSs and SDs, whereas 30 feet a second on a hunting round is so what?
Yep. Yeah. No, excellent, mate. Excellent. All right. From Chungi here, Berger just put out a 150 or 155 projectile for a 6.5.
They've got two. They've got a 153 and a half and a 156. Yep.
There you go. Do you have any plans to make a 150 for you? Now, I imagine the twist rate needed for that would be something phenomenal.
Absolutely no, because people have still got their head stuck in the weight division.
Yep.
Not in the displacement division. Our 140 grainer still requires a 6-inch twist to drive it. The BC of our 140 grainer is way over the 156 or even the 153 and a half.
Yeah. Right.
But you need the twist. But to be perfectly honest, if you're driving those big, long, heavy projectiles from Berger, you really need a much faster twist if you're driving them with a 6.5 Creed. Whereas even though they say you can get away with an 8-inch twist, you probably put in a 6.5 284 or one of the large cases.
Yep.
But you've broached the tipping point with a 6.5 Creedmoor and a pill that big, even though the BCs are so high. Remember that comment I made last time?
I do, yeah.
At 200 feet a second, the BC needs to be more than 15% high to actually gain the advantage.
That's right.
And it's a big jump down from 2980, 2970 down to 2720. Your BC is you're robbing Peter to pay Paul.
Yep.
The 156 Berger is probably very good in a 6.5 284.
Yep.
But I would still go with a faster twist than 8-inch. I would be using at least a 7.5 and maybe even a 7 for that one.
Absolutely. Have you tried Starline brass at all?
No, I haven't. The challenge with trying all the new stuff is that there's just no end to it. And I think I've seen advertisements from America over the last 2 weeks where 5 manufacturers claim to be the world's best brass manufacturer.
Got it. Yep.
I'm not suggesting that's not good. I truly don't know. But if you're using something that's spectacularly good, a sub-quarter variation and producing stunning results of ELR, I'd need a really compelling argument
to change. Yeah, not wrong. I appreciate their humility from Carlsberg beer in that regard, as they call themselves probably the best beer in the world, without actually making the claim they are. I think that's...
the Americans just make me laugh because they've always got the highest BCs and the best quality, and when you put them to the test, it's like, yeah, next.
Fair enough. Ben Jarrett again asks, Steve, do you look for a particular barrel timing that you find accurate when using quick load?
Yes, I do, but that has to be tuned to the bullet, the velocity, and the barrel length.
Okay.
And there is a timing calculator. We use a 5-way simultaneous equation in which quick load is only one of the formulas, and we line them all up. And if Ben wants to give me a call, I'm more than happy to take his data, run it through our program, and either make a recommendation on a barrel length or a load to match his barrel length existing to see if we can get him on the money. And that's not just unique to Ben. I do that for all my customers.
Yeah, absolutely. Just quick shout out to Warwick. Thanks, Warwick. He's shared a screenshot and tagged us in. So thanks very much for that, mate. Appreciate that. Hopefully we continue to grow the show. All right, who else has got a question here? Smells Like Butt, who joined me on Instagram live the other night, said he's running a Creedmoor, 6.5 Creedmoor, loading a Nosler, but he's got a question about Reloader 15. We don't really do a lot with Reloader 15 these days over here because we can't really get it.
Yeah, look, where I am, it's a 600-kilometre journey for me to get anything other than ADI.
Yeah.
So nearly everything I do is based on ADI. Look, Reloader 15, I actually had quite a lot of Reloader powder here at one stage. And my favourite at the time was Reloader 17, and I got pretty good results with Reloader 17.
Yep.
But I also found it much more sensitive to temperature changes. And where I live here, it can be -8, and it can be in the mid-30s. And Reloader 17 was just not able to handle that, whereas 09 and Shortcut didn't phase it very much at all. The extreme spread in feet per second, I actually measure them. For my ELR stuff, I measure all my ammunition velocities at 0 degrees.
Yep.
I literally load all my ammunition up. I'll sit it in the ice box. When the thermometer hits exactly 0 degrees, I'll whack 5 through and get an average velocity for it. And then I'll do it again at 38 degrees by putting that same ammunition in an insulator box under the car heater.
Yep.
And I'll do it again. Yep. And then I'll calculate the changes in feet per second. And that has that's basically essential or vital data for ELR shooting. You need to know the temperature, you need to know your air pressure, and a whole bunch of other things for first round hits at long range. And I'm getting 1.7 feet per second velocity variation with Shortcut, and it was closer to 6 or 7 with 17, Reloader 17. So I gave the 17 away.
Yep. Yeah, and over here, I know a gentleman in question is in the US, but over here, ADI powder is much easier to get a hold of, for sure.
Yeah.
All right, Ben Richo asks, when you're testing the different seeding depths at a particular powder weight, how do you know the results are due to the seeding and not an inconsistent powder node without tuning the load first?
Okay. The powder load variation will vary your outcomes, but seeding depth will vary it a great deal more.
Okay.
So you start with the biggest variable and work your way down. Now, if you to achieve this, yes, you do have to do a little bit of fiddling back and forward, but you start with your jump.
Yep.
And maintain the consistency of ES and SD. And when you've got a really good tight ES and SD, you can then double check your jump again with 5 thou either side, and you'll establish whether or not you're on the money. And generally speaking, I have had to vary a 50 thou jump so infrequently that I really just, when I'm starting out, I just set it at 50 to start.
Yep.
And then go to my powder and if I'm not getting accuracy, I'm really starting to look at other things like what's happened to the scope or the mounts or the bedding or what have you, because if I'm not getting sub-MOA straight off the cuff with that system, yeah, there's something really wrong somewhere.
Okay, fascinating. Chungi asked, do you cut your primer pockets in depth for uniformity?
No. I don't fiddle around with any of that. As far as I'm concerned, the most critically important thing regarding primer pockets is that they're clean. As for changing depths and changing ringing them out to make them uniform and all the rest of it, no, don't do it.
Don't do it. Okay.
No
worries. All right.
I know other people do, but I just.
No, that's it. We're asking you what you do, so that's you. Yeah, absolutely. All right, guys. So thank you for tuning in, guys. If you have any further questions, chuck them in the chat. We will get through to a few of them. Absolutely. Just let you know that tonight is brought to you by Projectile Warehouse. You can use the code ID LIVE5 to save 5% off over there. Just throwing that in the chat. You can go check out all the Outer Edge projectiles as well from there. Tomorrow night, Dave Acker is on the show. That's always good for a laugh. It's a Friday night, time to relax, grab a beer and kick back. And Dave will be joining us for whatever it is. So make sure you have your volume turned down because he's a fairly loud Canadian. And Sunday night will be a Q&A session as well with a few guests from the week. So we're looking forward to that also. Anyway, guys, we will get back into another question here for you, Steve. Dan has a question about a load that recently got low SD of 1, which is a very nice SD to be getting, but didn't shoot as good as some of the other loads that were around 9. He's asked whether or not that you could attribute that to like an incorrect jump. He was running 130 Burger OTMs at a 0.025 jump.
Okay, that 0.025, even for a Burger, even Burgers say that's too close.
Yep.
All right. Even Burgers say that about their own bullets. And whilst I'm not here to promote or disparage anybody else's product, the first thing I say to anybody who's not getting the performance that they're looking for is, did you read what manufacturers said about how to handle their product? And what Burgers say is that they are using jumps that are much bigger than that to start. And they suggest that jumps for their bullets all the way out to 120 work extremely well. So I would suggest that a 25 thou jump, you're probably too close. But even yes, I'm hearing what you're saying, that a low ES and SD may not necessarily be your most accurate, but that's probably to do with either jump or you haven't your jump hasn't lined up with your nodal point. Your nodal point for your barrel is like your guitar string. If you want the same consistent note all the time, you've got to put your finger behind the fret at the same pressure each and every time. Yep. And finding that nodal point is something that you can actually calculate. And I can show people fairly quickly and easily how to do that. But I'm not sure how we would do it in this show tonight.
In this format, yeah, sure. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, fantastic. So that could certainly explain why it was on paper a good round, but wasn't actually achieving what was expected.
Not, and getting a tighter group with, say,
I think we've just lost you for a second, Steve. Hopefully the rain blows away. I think we may have you back there.
Okay. Yeah. You got me now.
Yeah, we.
Right. Okay.
Do.
When you, you're right.
Yep. Good to go. Good to go.
Right. When you have very close jump to the lands, your sensitivity to variation in jump is enormous. Now, when you're using a traditional bullet, your ogives are not consistent, which is why they sell ogive comparatives.
Yep.
All right. The closer you are to the lens, the more sensitive you are to jump variation. When you're sitting back at 45, 50 thou, if your variation in jump is off a little bit, it's very, very difficult to measure the impact variation. But when you're very, very close to the lens, your impact variation is much more sensitive. So if you grab that same ES load of 1 and sat it back off 40 or 50, you might find a completely different result. Now, if you're developing all your super tight little bug holes at 17 thou off the lens, your bullet, your barrel erosion is somewhere between 5 and 8 thou per 100 rounds.
Wow. Okay.
Right.
Yeah.
Now, if your erosion is, let's say it was 5 thou per 100 rounds, and you were getting a great result at 17 thou jump, after 100 rounds, you now have to go to 23 thou, but now you've got to change your powder load. Right. Yep. But if you start your load at a 50 thou jump and keep the same powder load, and after 100 rounds, you're now at 55, I can't find a great deal of difference between 50 and 65 thou in terms of elevation variation.
Okay.
At 700 meters, it's something like 0.3 MOA.
Yeah, right.
But when you're at 25 thou off the lens, and you get a variation of 5 or 10 thou, it'll go to 0.8 MOA. And that's a lot. Most people can live with 0.3 MOA, particularly in a PRS type competition.
Sure.
But at 0.8, you're now starting to push the envelope.
Agreed. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So yeah, I did see that they'd covered some throat erosion as well in the precision rifle blog stuff also, and obviously it was pretty important.
Yeah, you'll actually find a significant number of comments there from me when he first started that, and oh dear, are you still there?
I'm still here.
I've lost the picture.
Yeah,
I've lost the picture. Can you see me?
Yeah, we're good. We're good, Steve. Yep, I'll let you know if there's any dramas.
Okay, that's good because I've lost you guys. Your picture anyway, but that doesn't matter.
It's all right. Not that pretty. It's not that big a loss, really.
Right. So you'll see a number of comments and prompts and challenges from me in there. And the first thing Cal did was he went running off to check some of his manuals and came back and went, "Oh,
okay."
Okay.
Yep. Yeah.
Yeah.
Ah, awesome.
Okay.
Awesome. And that's the thing is, I think actually one of the things about Precision Rifle Blog is that the guys often the guys are who are commenting really do quite often know what they're talking about. I'm finding some of your comments here. Man, you can type. Wow, that's some good stuff there. It's awesome. Yeah, it's good, and the good thing I like about Cal is that he will jump in there and pretty much reply to everyone. Very few comments go unanswered. And
not only that, he also has access to some fairly well credentialed people, and if he says something that they can challenge with substance, he'll cop it on the chin and publish it. And you can't help but respect that.
Absolutely. Right. Another question here. Do you full length resize? Do you neck size, or what do you do in the various scenarios, Steve?
I full length size everything.
Everything.
Even ELR.
Yep. And is that again for consistency?
Yes. Yep. If you neck size only, you've got to keep in mind that your cartridge is sitting in a chamber and there's play. There has to be, otherwise it would be extremely challenging to feed the cartridge into the chamber. So when it's sitting there and it's fired, the case does not blow out evenly all the way around the head.
Mm-hmm.
Right? The only way you can present your cartridge evenly each and every time is if you lengthsize your whole case correctly.
Yep.
And that's a difficult thing to explain in a face-to-face video. You actually have to see it done. But yes, full length sizing, in my view, is the only one that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. Do you do anything with bushing dies or anything along those lines at all, or is it pretty just standard full length dies? What dies do you use?
I use a range of for the hunting dies. I just use Hornady Custom.
Yep.
For the general competition stuff, I'm using Redding.
Mm-hmm.
And the inline seated with the micrometer setting for the ELR type stuff, I'm using Widden dies, which I'm very impressed with.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry, what was the original question? They're the dies that I use.
Yep.
But,
yeah. So do you do anything with bushings at all?
If I'm getting a neck tension of between 1 and 2 thou, I'm happy. If my clearance between the neck and the chamber is between 2.5 and 3 thou, I'm happy. I don't get down to the minute dimensions in those regard because I can't seem to demonstrate any advantage in doing it.
Got it. Yeah. If it doesn't, if you can't show that it helps, there's no point changing it to help. Now, there's a couple of questions, comments circulating, Steve, in the comments, and I'm gonna slightly tweak the question. The question was from Steve Blacker and says, "Have you thought about writing a book to capture your knowledge?" My question to you, Steve, is when are you writing your book to capture your knowledge?
Oh dear! What I'm doing at the moment is I'm getting a large number of questions, so I'm writing them up as FAQs.
Yes,
and I've done that in. Well, you've actually seen the brief, quick and dirty version.
Yep.
And there's a much more in-depth version on our website.
Mm.
But every time I do something like this, I get questions that are really, really good that I haven't thought of. I might know the answer, but I haven't actually thought of writing it down and putting it in there. So it's an interesting challenge, and yeah, it probably is something that I should pay a little bit more attention to, even if it's only in the electronic form and for the website.
I think that over the time, if you keep noting down the questions you get asked, because you do, as you said, you get asked some really good stuff from all, I've seen it at shows. You have some really good in-depth discussion with guys at gun shows, and so, some are just you're repeating the things that that you talk about every show, and then no doubt sometimes you get a question you go, wow, and I hadn't, again, as you said, you probably know the answer to, but you haven't actually taken that angle on it or answered it in that context, and so that'd be I think a fascinating way to do it.
It's definitely when you delve in really deep, you find yourself having to address questions that you hadn't thought of before.
Yep.
And you deal with it.
Yep.
And then you deal with it again, and then you deal with it again until it becomes automatic, and then you forget that other people may not have crossed that bridge yet.
Yes.
And one of the most dangerous things you can do when you're trying to help somebody is to assume. And I'm trying really hard not to assume, but without insulting people's intelligence too.
Yep.
Because there's a lot of good people in this group that really that know a lot of stuff. But I don't think anybody's got the complete picture. And when you put it all together, you go. I often really enjoy sitting down with people that are also well credentialed and have different skill sets.
Yep.
And debating issues, not to prove who's clever, but I hadn't looked at something a particular way and go away and chew on it and think there's something in that.
Yep.
And a classic example of that is. I've been discussing this one with Jonesy.
Yep.
And it's to do with loading on high humidity days.
I I thought you were going somewhere else with that. I thought you were going to say loading in high heels, and I thought, yeah, well, that'd be a Jonesy
Good
question.
Good idea.
Jonesy would certainly be in the 4 category for that, wouldn't he? I'm waiting for him to pop up in the chat.
Yeah.
Anyway, okay.
We'll have a laugh about that one later.
Humidity, got it. Humidity, yeah, sure.
Because the chemical compound for primers is actually quite hygroscopic, and it's been my suspicion that primers are quite sensitive to brisance variation, depending on the conditions under which you load them.
Yep.
And we've been sitting here down and discussing how we might test for that. And I don't know whether I'm going to be proved right or wrong, but at the end of it, I hopefully will know.
Yep, I do believe,
and it's important to know, not to believe.
I do believe that Trump yesterday said that you should take 2 primers with a glass of milk every night before bed to stop getting coronavirus. I think that was one of the suggestions. So. Yeah. Obviously, whatever you said, primers are made out of it. Clearly, it solves coronavirus. So, want to believe what's going on there, then get into it.
Yeah, lead fulminate, mate. Yeah, really good stuff.
Yeah, no, it kills you at the same time, but that's like you can't get.
That's how it kills the coronavirus. So motherless.
Removing the host. Yeah, perfect. Good long-term plan. Okay, excellent. Yeah. So back to the question. You're doing a book soon? Or you'll keep collecting frequently asked questions. You'll keep sort of documenting your answers, and then eventually we'll turn that into a book at some point.
Well, to be honest, I'm rather taken aback by the question. I hadn't actually thought of ever doing a book, but
really?
Now that you've got my head turned to it, I'll scratch my nut and think about that.
Yeah, well, I suspect that there would be a lot of interest, and maybe you even tied in with or initially you put some. I mean, here we are brainstorming on the show, but that's the way we roll. You do a Outer Edge Projectile loading book, and then the first half of it is some questions and answers and process and that sort. Anyway, who knows? The all sorts of things can be done. You just have to make sure you can keep power on the house to write it, or maybe when the power goes out, get one of these old school things and start away. Right, we do have another question before we are wrapping up. We only got a few minutes left, guys. So if you do have any quick questions, chuck them in now, and we'll see if we can get to them. Ben Richardson asks the best way to test 40,000 to 90,000 jump in 5,000 increments. I believe that's what you said. One aiming mark at a distance on a target system, or 11 different aiming marks, and plot point of impact versus point of aim. Have I read that correctly? There's 11 different variations in that, and do you aim all at the same thing, or do you?
Yeah. Okay. If I'm going to change jump, then I will have. Testing procedures can be as honest or dishonest as you want to make them, and you've got to trick yourself into not fooling yourself that you want a particular outcome. So I will grab one aiming mark with one particular jump, and then another target with another jump. But that the 40, 60, 80, 100,000 in 5,000 increments, I wouldn't go to those lengths myself, simply because you'll be halfway through your barrel life before you get it sorted out. I'm much happier I would be much happier with a 0.2 MOA result in 30 rounds than a 0.1 MOA result that I burned half my barrel out to get there to. So I will generally start straight at 50. And I will and if I'm going to vary from there, I'll go in 20,000 increments to see if it makes much of a difference. And normally you will get a saddle either side of that. and you start closing the gap between. So you might find that you went the wrong way going from 50 to 60 or 50 to 70, and that you might have been better off going to 35 or 40.
Yep.
So you've got a group of probably 3 there.
Yes.
And I would then go to aim at the same aiming mark, but on 3 different targets, and all I'd be interested in is measuring the group size general, but I'd be specifically interested in vertical.
Okay. Yeah, because I see a lot of guys only measure vertical. They're not really interested in horizontal. Is that valid? Is there is that just an attempt to take wind out of it completely, or is that not quite thorough enough? You really do have to look if there's some left to right variation as well.
You do have to look at windage, but not because of the width of the group, but because of the shape of the group. The shape of the group is really, really important. Are you getting vertical stringing, horizontal stringing? Are you getting a donut? They're the kind of thing. It's the shape of the group that will tell you which direction you're heading. Right? If you're heading, let's say you picked 50 thou as your starting point.
Yep.
And you're thinking, oh, I might be able to improve on that. And you try 70, and you try 35 or 30 or something like that.
Yep.
If between 70 and 35 is your ideal spot, and you've tried 70, the group shape is going to tell you straight away. Right? When you start getting very round groups, or if you're getting direct horizontal or direct vertical groups, it tells you different things.
Yep.
So, but first, I am looking for vertical.
Yep.
But I am very, very interested in the shape of the group.
Gotcha. Okay. Fascinating. Steve, we've got a couple of quick questions, hopefully. First one is, what sonic cleaner do you use, and the solution that you do with that?
It's really high-tech stuff. I use lemon dishwashing liquid.
Yep.
And a teaspoon of citric acid.
Okay. Good.
And if it's really difficult or aggressive, I might use Simple Green.
Okay. And what's the product that you use to shake that around in?
I just sit it in an ultrasonic cleaner.
Just generic, no brand, whatever.
Yeah, I'm using a Hornady ultrasonic cleaner, but it just sits in a bath, and halfway through it, I'll turn the degasser on, and I'll pull it out, and if all the gunk isn't gone, I'll put it back in again and do it all again.
Keep on going.
And then I'll put it. It's always gone by the second. Sometimes you can get away with just one.
Got it. Yep.
And I always heat it up too. I'm running it pretty hot.
Okay.
50 degrees. 50 degrees is normally about right. But in the summertime, I might only run it to 40 because it just doesn't. I'll run the high temperature in the wintertime.
And so you've probably just got that sitting there now, keeping the house warm, haven't you? Just to help.
It is running now, actually, but it is in the shed.
Oh, right, keeping the shed warm. All right, quickly before we go, and this could be a can of worms. So we'll take the short answer on this one, Steve, because it was an SMS, and so I didn't see it until late. Sorry, Hamish. What is your opinion on gain twist barrels? Have you had anything to do with those?
Yeah, I sat down with I can't remember his name right now, but the owner of Bartland Barrels, and discussed it with him for a good hour or so.
Yep.
And given that he makes the barrels, I take, and he's had an infinite amount more experience with going to his barrels than I've ever had.
Yep.
And his view of it is, yes, he makes them. Yes, they have a benefit, but it is marginal. And given the nature, the conclusion that I've reached for our monolithic style projectiles, that it's not an advantage. but it may be an advantage for some jacketed projectile. And the reason being is that we've got an hourglass shape, so you've got a disc front and back.
Yep.
And if it's gain twist, you don't want that traction tearing.
Mm-hmm.
And the recommendation that Bartland made, even for those guys that were using it for jacketed projectiles that were getting really good results, really moderate gains seem to be working better than aggressive gains. So if you're going from 14 to 12,
Yep.
you were diluting yourself. If you were going from 12 to 10 or 11 to 10, they seem to be getting quite good results, but I'm not convinced that it's substantially different to choking your muzzle.
Okay.
Whether it's gain twist or muzzle choking, there seems to be something there,
Mm-hmm.
but given the results that we're achieving with very conventional technology, using conventional lands or ratchet style lands, and no mucking around with choking or gain twist or anything like that, I think if there was an advantage, I don't know how you'd measure it.
Yeah, it would be tough. Absolutely. Well, Steve, we're definitely out of time. Thank you very much for this evening. I know there's a few other questions, guys. Save them up. No doubt Steve will be back at some other point in future, and we need to keep adding to his list for the book. Steve, thank you very much for your time. I do want to leave you with the suggestion from one of the guys in the chat here suggested that the book be called The Aussie Bulletsmith. How we looking? We've got a title. We're working title. We started to get there. Looks good. I can't wait for it. Excellent. All right, Steve, all the best. Sure. And, of course, you guys can check out Outer Edge Projectiles on Projectile Warehouse. And at the moment, you can save 5% using the code IDLive5 for watching this show. So check that all out. And, guys, tomorrow night we'll be back with Dave Acker. He'll be here to raise the proverbial roof as he does. So make sure you turn your volume down. Don't put headphones in. You'll hear him anyway, especially if you're near Melbourne. Looking forward to that, guys. Take care, and we will see you guys tomorrow night. Cheers. Hey, pretty baby. Find out what you see.